I can still feel the cool breeze that rustled the leaves as we entered the remote forest, a place untouched by the chaos of civilization. The smell of damp earth and pine enveloped us, and the only sounds were the occasional calls of distant birds. It was a hunting trip like any other, or so we thought. We were a group of avid hunters, each armed with our rifles and clad in camouflage gear that blended seamlessly with the dense foliage. The excitement in the air was noticeable. The thrill of the hunt coursed through our veins. Little did we know that the forest held secrets darker than any prey we sought. As we ventured deeper, our senses heightened. The thick canopy above us filtered the sunlight, creating a mosaic of shadows on the forest floor. And then we saw it, a majestic 10-point buck grazing in a small clearing. Its antlers reached towards the sky, a prize that would make any hunter's heart race. I steadied my rifle, my fingers wrapping around the cold metal. The others followed suit, our eyes fixated on the magnificent creature. It was the perfect moment for a shot, and the forest held its breath. That's when it happened. The crack of footsteps and a sudden burst of laughter shattered the quiet. The buck vanished into the shadows, and our focus shifted from the prey to an unseen predator. The echoing laughter seemed to crawl under our skin, leaving goosebumps in its wake. We exchanged wary glances, our senses on high alert. The forest, once a haven, now seemed like a labyrinth with an unknown adversary. The tables had turned and we became the hunted. The laughter continued, weaving through the trees like an ominous melody. Paranoia gripped us, each crackle of leaves underfoot fueling our anxiety. The forest seemed to close in, shadows morphing into unseen threats. Our skills were put to the test, survival instincts kicking in. It started with the traps, ingeniously concealed pitfalls and snares designed to ensnare the unwary. As we navigated the treacherous terrain, we spotted them, crude mechanisms that promised injury or worse. One wrong step, and we would become victims of a sadistic game. I eyed a pit disguised with leaves, the darkness below hiding its depth. A narrow escape left my heart pounding, the realization sinking in that every inch of the forest was a potential death trap. Another hunter wasn't as fortunate. His foot triggered a trap and he tumbled to the ground with a cry of pain. The laughter intensified. A sense of dread settled over us as we tended to our injured comrade. The forest seemed alive with malice, an evil force orchestrating our descent into chaos. We pressed on, driven by the need to survive, but the unseen stalker was always one step ahead. The forest whispered secrets as we stumbled through the underbrush. The air grew thick with tension, and every shadow held the promise of danger. We were caught in a deadly game of cat and mouse, the hunter becoming the hunted in a relentless pursuit. The traps became more elaborate, a twisted art form designed to break our spirits. Panic set in as we realized the severity of our predicament. The forest seemed to revel in our vulnerability, its laughter echoing through the trees. The constant thrum of fear was ever present, twisting every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig into a herald of doom. The forest became a maze of fear, the laughter a constant reminder that escape was a fleeting dream. With each passing moment, our resolve waned, replaced by the gnawing fear that we were pawns in a sadistic game. Desperation fueled our flight. The forest, once a sanctuary, now loomed like a nightmare. Adrenaline surged as we ran, the unseen stalker relentless in their pursuit. Every breath was a struggle, every step a battle against the unknown. The distant sight of the clearing where our trucks were parked offered a glimmer of hope, a lifeline in the darkness. We pushed ourselves to the limit, our bodies aching, but the forest showed no mercy. The laughter chased us, an incessant reminder that we were mere playthings in its twisted game. Finally, the clearing came into view and we sprinted towards the safety of our trucks. The forest's grip loosened, but the laughter lingered, haunting our memories. As we sped away, the remote forest faded into the rearview mirror, a place forever etched in our nightmares. The hunters became the hunted, and the forest's whisper echoed in the silence that followed, a chilling reminder that some places should remain untouched. Darkness enveloped the world as we ventured into the heart of nowhere. The wind whispered through the skeletal remains of trees, creating an eerie symphony. Our flashlights cut through the black void, revealing only fragments of the desolate landscape. We were a group of lost souls, wandering through the night, searching for something. As we stumbled upon the edge of a clearing, the feeble beams of our flashlights illuminated a sight that froze us in our tracks. A town, seemingly abandoned overnight, lay before us like a graveyard of memories. The buildings stood silent, windows shattered and doors ajar as if the occupants had fled in a hurry. The only sound was the unsettling crunch of gravel beneath our boots. The first house we entered seemed like a time capsule frozen in distress. An uneaten meal sat on the dining table, as if the diner had vanished into thin air. The television flickered with static, casting ghostly shadows on the walls. The air hung heavy with the scent of neglect, like the town itself had held its breath for years. We moved through the empty streets, each step echoing in the stillness. Cars sat idle in driveways, keys still in the ignition like the drivers had evaporated into the night. The houses, frozen in abandonment, bore witness to lives interrupted. Family photos adorned the walls, faces smiling frozen smiles, forever unaware of the void that now surrounded them. As we explored further, the feeling of isolation intensified. The silence became a living entity, pressing against our eardrums, amplifying the sound of our own panicked breaths. We found ourselves in a town square, a lonely gazebo standing as the centerpiece. A forgotten newspaper lay on a bench, its headlines telling tales of a world left behind. The unease grew with every passing moment, as if the town itself was a conscious being, watching our every move. We dared not speak, fearing that our voices would shatter the fragile balance that held this forsaken place together. The air was thick with the weight of unanswered questions. In our desperate search for answers, we stumbled upon a small church at the edge of town. Its doors creaked open, inviting us into the sanctuary. The pews stood as witnesses to a congregation long gone. A hymn book lay open, its pages fluttering in the breeze that seeped through broken windows. The altar, bathed in the dim glow of moonlight filtering through stained glass, held a peculiar sight. A single candle burned, its flame dancing in the stillness. Before it, a journal lay open, pages filled with handwriting that seemed to scream of a growing desperation. The words spoke of a gradual exodus, a town haunted by an encroaching void, swallowing everything in its path. We huddled around the journal, reading the accounts of those who had stayed until the bitter end. They spoke of a mysterious illness, a creeping illness that had consumed the town. The last entry, a shaky scrawl, detailed the final moments of the writer's existence. It was a farewell to a world that had crumbled around them. As the truth unfolded, the weight of the town's silence became unbearable. We were not alone in the emptiness. We were surrounded by the echoes of lives that had slipped away in the night. The unease that had gripped us now transformed into a profound sorrow. We retraced our steps through the abandoned streets haunted by the specters of the past. The wind whispered secrets that only the town knew, and the darkness seemed to absorb our every footfall. The town, once a haven for the living, had become a mausoleum for memories lost in time. As we left the forsaken place, the moon cast its indifferent gaze upon the desolation below. The road stretched out before us, a path leading away from the haunting silence that clung to our clothes. The town remained behind, a ghostly relic, a testament to the fragility of existence. Our journey continued into the night, the echoes of the deserted town fading into the distance. The darkness that had enveloped us now seemed like a familiar companion, and the wind carried whispers of a past that begged not to be forgotten. In the heart of nowhere, we carried with us the weight of a town left to languish in perpetual solitude. I stumbled upon the commune by accident. It was supposed to be a simple hike in the woods, a solo adventure to clear my mind and escape the noise of everyday life. The trees loomed tall around me, their leaves forming a thick canopy that filtered the sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor. The air was crisp, filled with the earthy scent of moss and the distant murmur of a babbling brook. As I trekked deeper into the woods, I noticed a clearing ahead. The sight that greeted me was surreal, a picturesque meadow bathed in golden sunlight. In the center stood a cluster of rustic cabins, their wooden walls weathered by time. Smoke spiraled from chimneys, and the aroma of home-cooked meals wafted through the air. It was an idyllic scene straight out of a storybook. Approaching cautiously, I saw people milling about, engaged in various activities. Some tended to a communal garden while others sat in groups laughing and chatting. It felt like stumbling upon a hidden paradise, a close-knit community living harmoniously in the heart of the wilderness. A friendly woman approached, her eyes twinkling with warmth. "Hello there. You look like you could use a break. Would you like to join us for a meal?" Grateful for the unexpected hospitality, I nodded and followed her to a long wooden table laden with an array of delicious dishes. The food was simple but hearty, and the company was welcoming. As the day wore on, I couldn't help but marvel at my stroke of luck in finding such a welcoming community. Night fell, and the communal fire flickered to life. The villagers gathered around, sharing stories and singing songs. I felt a sense of belonging, as if I had stumbled upon a place that had been waiting for me. But as the night deepened, so did the shadows of doubt. I noticed a few peculiarities. Conversations hushed when I approached, and glances were exchanged in secrecy. There was an unspoken tension in the air, a subtle shift that hinted at something beneath the surface. Curiosity gnawed at me, urging me to explore the village further. Guided by the moonlight, I wandered towards the outskirts, where the cabins were fewer and the silence more pronounced. It was then that I stumbled upon a scene that shattered the illusion of utopia. My heart pounded as I peered through a crack in the door. The villagers huddled around a dimly lit room, their faces contorted with hunger. Inside, a bound and gagged traveler struggled against restraints, their heads tilted slightly forward like hungry vipers poised to strike, their stillness more terrifying than any movement could be. A guttural fear clawed at my insides as I realized the horrifying truth. The commune sustained itself by consuming unsuspecting travelers. The warmth, the hospitality, it was all a facade. Panic set in, but I knew I had to escape. Retreating into the shadows, I laid out a plan. Every step had to be calculated, every breath measured. The night seemed eternal as I navigated the maze of cabins, avoiding the watchful eyes of the villagers. Just as I thought I was in the clear, a twig snapped beneath my foot. Panic surged as heads turned in my direction. The villagers, their eyes now devoid of hospitality, locked onto me with predatory focus. I sprinted through the forest, fueled by sheer terror and the adrenaline of survival. Behind me, their haunting cries echoed through the trees. The pursuit was relentless, and every shadow seemed to conceal another threat. The woods that had once felt like a sanctuary now closed in on me, trapping me in a sinister game of cat and mouse. My lungs burned and my legs threatened to give way, but I pushed on. The commune's twisted secret had transformed the once serene forest into a nightmarish labyrinth. I stumbled and fell, branches tearing at my clothes, but the distant howls urged me to rise and keep running. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I burst through the tree line and into the cold embrace of open terrain. The moonlit landscape stretched before me, a vast expanse of freedom. Gasping for breath, I didn't stop until I reached the safety of civilization. The memory of that night haunts me. The seemingly ideal commune, the sinister secret concealed behind warm smiles, and the desperate fight for survival. It serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes paradise can hide the darkest horrors, and a lost hiker may stumble upon more than just the quiet solitude of the woods.